I am joined now by J.C. Polanco, an attorney and assistant professor at the College of Mont St. Vincent, and political consultant O'Brien Murray. Now, I know that the governor's race in New York is a year from November, but there's so much going on that I really want to start talking about it. First of all, the Republican side. Mike Lawler, there are reports that Republicans are trying to convince Mike Lawler not to run because they're worried about keeping his seat next time. Wait.
Sure.
Wait. But he says, I'm going to make a decision in June, and it's going to be based on what I want to do, not what anybody tells me. What do you think is going on?
The New York Times this week had a great story about Elise Stefanik, saying the same thing about Elise, and it was credited towards the speaker, Speaker Johnson.
Wait.
And Elise said,
let's talk about Lawler first.
Elise said he's never spoken to me about it. So the question really is to Lawler, who is really saying to him, you should stay in the House? His seat, I think I've said on air before, is very tough to win this year. I don't see how he wins it in a presidential Republican midterm.
I think it's a very, very tough seat to win, especially for what you just said in a midterm. And the only person on the Republican side that can keep that seat is Congressman Lawler. There's no other way. So I can see the National Republican Party beg Congressman Lawler to stay put and not to do this.
But if you listen to your compatriot over here, he says Lawler can't win the seat anyway, so why not take a shot at being governor?
Well, I disagree with my friend here, Obi. I think that Mike Lawler has proven that he can win that seat, and I think that in a district like this, in the midterm election, he's going to move more towards the middle. He's going to start looking for ways to get independents and Democrats to support him. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to position himself as that independent Republican voice by bucking the party on many key votes coming in to demonstrate his moderate bona fides.
But wait, I have a point. So you have a situation where he has done well in the past because he does well in the Jewish communities, the various Jewish communities in the district. But now, if you take a look at the Democratic field, there are several Jews who are pushing to try to get the nomination. And so will he lose that support in the Jewish community if he runs against a Jewish opponent in the Democratic Party?
Marcia, I'm an Irish Catholic, Catholic high school, Catholic college, Jewish ex-wife. And I've done a lot of work in Borough Park. When we're talking about the Jews that are running for Congress in that district, we're not talking about the Jews that control the district with the sects and so forth and the big populations. The average Jewish voter, much like Mayor, like Mayor Koch used to say, on the Upper West Side of New York, don't support Mayor Koch. It's a liberal, not the sects, S-E-C-T-S, that are controlling that vote and vote in blocks. I've run races up there. That's not going to impact that vote whatsoever.
How do you feel?
Well, I think Obi's right on that. I think that there's another thing we have to consider, which is how far left are Democrats going to go, and how much are those lefty Democrats going to hurt their chances with the Jewish vote moving towards the midterm elections? Because let's face it, Mike Lawler is going to take a look at the way that some Democrats are talking about Jewish people and some of their leaders and their positions, and it may sway a lot of those Republicans, a lot of those Jews to vote Republican in the midterm elections. I think we have to remember that.
The other challenge, don't forget, is the Democratic Party has left the Jewish voter across the country. What you have is the progressive voter staying with Democrats if they happen to be Jewish. But in average right now, what is going on in Israel and the Middle East and so forth, the Democratic Party has too fractured to see what they're doing. AOC, who may be the next New York State Senator because of Chuck Schumer, is not supportive of Israel.
Right.
Can you believe that in New York, and she's going to run as a Democrat?
No, that may be why she can't win.
Oh, she can win right now, I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you this, I disagree with you completely. I mean, look, you have to understand that the Democrats are really shooting themselves on the foot by having socialist Democrats as the leaders of their party going around the country rallying and getting support from the choir. And talking about oligarchy, they're exciting the base. They think they're doing something. All you're doing is preaching to the choir. Every time you look at some of these stadiums filled with people, people get excited. But at the end of the day, the folks that you're putting up front are socialist Democrats who will never win purple districts. And this is why I think Mike Lawler has a good shot in that district.
But wait, let me ask you this question. So, with Mike Lawler making a decision whether to run or not, he also has to look at the fact that there are 20,000 more Democrats in that district than Republicans and independents. And you have a situation where midterm elections usually hurt the party in power, the president in power. So you've got a Republican president, 20,000 more Democrats. Does he say, maybe I'll take a shot at governor, or does he say, hey, I'm going to follow my sword and try to run?
The Jewish vote will be his. The independent voter will not be his. They will, at this point in this election, swing where they supported him before. They will start moving away from him.
What about
it's not
the Democratic
against Michael
voters?
Lawler. Pardon?
What about the Democrats, the 20,000 more Democrats?
That hurts him too, no question about it. But more voters are independent now. That's the one he's really got to worry about. Yeah. And they're falling away from Trump bit by bit. And just that little bit is going to make the difference for him in that district.
So if you're Mike Lawler, do you run for governor or do you stay and run for Congress?
I run for governor or something else. I don't know why I would stay in the House at this point. To go to the minority, to barely win, and have to fight for that thing 2 years later in a presidential.
It's a lot easier to run for governor as a sitting member of Congress than as a former member of Congress. It's much easier for fundraising. It's much easier for a whole host of reasons. So I think that he's going to have an opportunity now, I think, to run for re-election. And if it means governor down the road, he may have to look at it down the road. I don't see the Republican Party letting him just go.
I've been against him in the past, well known. And that's what makes this so important to say. I supported him last election as far as he was going to win. I called it. I agreed with it. I knew he was going to do it. This time, I don't see it happening. And him against Hochul, he can win. I don't see Hochul winning her primary, and that's going to change things dramatically.
Oh, boy.
But wait a second. Let's now bring in Stefanik, Elise Stefanik. Does she become the person that the Republican Party supports because her seat in the North Country is a lot easier to guarantee a Republican holding than Mike Lawler's seat?
The problem is with Congresswoman Stefanik is that she's hardcore MAGA. She is not electable in New York. The only way you elect a Republican in New York is through the Pataki model, through the Rockefeller model. A moderate Republican, a Republican who is pro-choice, a Republican who's pro-LGBT rights, a Republican who happens to bring in Latino voters, very similar to how George Pataki did with Amigos de Pataki, someone who could have a lot of crossover appeal. Congresswoman Stefanik has zero. She is hardcore MAGA. She cannot win statewide.
I disagree with that, but more importantly, she's going to win that primary. Right now, she's head and shoulders above.
Well, we're talking about winning the state.
She beats Lawler in a primary?
Oh, sure she does. Absolutely.
Yeah, she's very far to the right. She has, I think she would win in a primary against
Elise Stefanik will not run for Congress again. The New York Times report this week, well, her on the record, what she said about the speaker, there is no way I can see her supporting him for another day that she has to.
Why does she win a primary over Mike Lawler?
She's got a better name ID right now. She was higher up in the leadership in the House. She's more MAGA at this point in Republican primary. That's all.
He comes from the Hudson Valley, where you have a situation where the people are more moderate as opposed to more hardcore from her district.
Yeah, but the state GOP right now is hardcore MAGA. Listen, for you to put anything other than a hardcore MAGA in a Republican primary is equivalent to putting a centrist against a progressive in a Democratic primary. The progressive has the edge.
She's a diehard MAGA.
She's diehard MAGA. This is someone who sat on national television and actually looked at the audience and called the January 6th terrorists J6 hostages. That's all you need to do. You got the Republican base on lockdown, especially the president.
Elise is going to get an earlier start than Lee Zeldin did. She's going to have a map that Lee Zeldin had to build on. Nassau County, Suffolk County, the Hudson Valley will come her way. I do not see how she would ever lose that primary if she wants it. She will not run for the seat and will wait for a presidential appointment as soon as her term is up so they don't lose a seat, or she will run for governor and then get an appointment if she loses.
Or does she hope that President Trump appoints her to something that she thinks is commensurate with the previous appointment, which would have been the UN at the UN?
She'll do that after her term is up so they don't lose a Republican seat. The way the governor was playing her games this time around, there was no way for her to give up that seat.
They're a lot safer today after the Florida special election, so I can definitely see her getting pulled out. It's a
special election for the former director of intelligence.
I know, but she could easily move into that position. The reality is this. Anyone listening, it is fool's gold to run a hardcore MAGA for a statewide position in New York. It's never going to happen.
We're going to have to leave it there for right now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York.